What's the best long-term program to prepare for your next weightlifting competition? In episode 47 of the Last Step Best Step podcast, Coach Calvin and I break down the exact 25-week program, block by block, that we'll be using with our brand new competition team on Train Heroic. And if you love learning about Olympic weightlifting, getting strong, and building muscle, then make sure to subscribe. Welcome back to the Last Step Best Step podcast. I'm Coach Brian. I'm the owner of Big Ben Strength. I've been teaching Olympic lifting for 11 years now.
And I am Coach Calvin. I'm current captain of Lindenwood University's Olympic weightlifting program, as well as a coach through Big Ben Strength.
And today we're going to be answering some questions that you guys submitted to us, starting with question number 1. How do I program for my next competition? Really excited about this one. We've got a special one planned for you guys because we're not just going to do a 4-week competition prep program outline. We're not going to do like a 12-week cycle. We're going to go over a full 25 weeks of training. We've got a long time to go for your next competition. Full 25 weeks. What would we do to build up to a competition? And this is going to be based on the exact structure that we're going to be using in our new competition team. I'm really excited about this. Calvin's going to be heading up a brand new competition team program on Train Heroic. We're going to be launching that starting on September 12th. The workouts will start on September 15th. But if you're listening to this right now, when it first comes out, on the 9th of September, we will have a wait list linked down in the description below if you guys want to take part in that. Just some details on that. It's going to be 4 days a week with an optional 5th day a week of training. It's going to be $39 a month, and that is going to include daily video review. You can take one video of your lifts and upload them into the app, and Calvin will give you some technique pointers as we work our way towards the first competition of the year that we're planning for, which is the Arnold. So 25 weeks of programming. What does that consist of? How are we splitting this up?
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot that goes into a comp prep program because you have so many variables, right? So I think like the biggest focus, you always want to go from higher volumes to lower volumes when you're trying to peak, when you're trying to get better. So we talk a lot about, especially lately, about like the principles behind training. And so you'll find that this entire program is all completely based on those principles. I actually, made a whole lecture at our camp this summer. So we had a really great camp, and a lot of the kids really enjoyed the lecture. They said it was like one of their favorite activities. And so we talk all about how to write the principles behind writing a program. So this video kind of goes alongside with that nicely, and it's kind of the more nuts and bolts, how we're actually doing it in those 24, 25 weeks of training going into the Arnold, or if you just want to do this program on your own, maybe you're not going to go to the Arnold, but you want to hit some huge lifts at the end of this cycle, this is the perfect program. So let's talk about a little bit how we're arranging that. So we have 2 strength mesocycles that are each 9 weeks. The first one, back squat emphasis. The second mesocycle is going to be front squat emphasis. And then we have 2 3-week peaking blocks into the competition. So that adds all the way up to be 24 weeks, and then we have a taper week at the very end, the 25th week, while you're going into the competition. And I give out that taper in a way that it works like 5 days out, 4 days out, 3 days out, instead of, some people are going to compete on Thursday, some people are going to compete on Saturday. If you're doing it at home, whichever day works best for you, for your schedule. A lot of people like to go heavy on Saturdays. You don't have work, you don't have stress, maybe. So let's go all the way back to the beginning and talk a little bit more about that back squat strength emphasis first 9 weeks of this program and kind of what we're doing in there.
How many week blocks are we doing here?
Okay, yeah, so there's going to be 3 3-week blocks in the 9-week back squat focus. Mesocycle is kind of a mesocycle usually has like a general training goal, like increase back squat strength or build volume, or like it's a volume mesocycle that lasts for 9 or 12 weeks, something like that. But this is specifically a back squat strength mesocycle. I'd say that there's some sub goals of building a little bit of volume. So now, if you were really smart, you would use our 12-week high-volume weightlifting program immediately before this, and it would go great into the program. But just in case somebody hasn't done a ton of volume, we're going to be including some drop sets of 10 on some of our strength lifts, as well as a ton of volume in the Olympic lifts, but kind of how we're getting that volume is a little different than maybe something people have done in the past. So instead of doing sets of 5 or sets of 4, like some people might do in a volume cycle, we have to get ready for this competition. We have to have a chance at some heavier weights. And so the way we do that, for instance, you could do a set of 4 and take 4 minutes rest before your next set of 4. What we're doing is we're doing a set of 2, taking 1 minute rest, coming back, doing another set of 2. It's an EMOM training. Many people are familiar with this, but I love using EMOMs with my athletes. I think just all the chances you get to work on your technique throughout there, and that feeling that you have in your head when you either make a really good lift or miss a lift, or maybe it's just a bad lift, like you just don't do the technique thing you're working on. It's fresh in your mind as you're approaching that bar the next time. Whereas if you take a full 3 minutes, that feeling that you're searching for kind of leaves your mind a little bit. So EMOMs in the first 3 blocks, what is that going to look like? Block 1 of back squat focus. EMOM doubles, 10 sets, starts at 65% on week 1. And we're going to kind of build eventually to the last week being a lower number of sets, but starting at 75% or above. Now, I'm going to give you guys about a 5% range. I don't want you going more than 5% over that range. But this gives a little wiggle room if you want to kind of wave up and down a little bit throughout that EMOM block. Throw on some 5s on the side, throw on some 2.5s on the side. That's totally cool. And with the strength movements, what are we doing? We're going to do 5s on clean deadlift and drop sets of 10. That's going to be pretty hard, but the percentages aren't going to be so much so that you're slowing down very much. Maybe on the last week of 3 in the block, right? Now, what makes this a back squat emphasis program, or the first 9 weeks back squat emphasis, is that on the Saturday, we're going to be doing AMRAP back squats. Block 1, 5s, block 2, 3s, block 3, singles, with an AMRAP set at the very end. So what that might look like, we might have 4 sets of 5 at 70% with an AMRAP on the last set, or on a 5th set that we add in there. So you'd hopefully, with 70%, get around 10 reps. So we're getting some more volume in, but we're pushing maximally in the back squat, which is going to lead to a lot of strength gains through this back squat cycle. So the goal is to hit a really heavy back squat single on the last week of the 9 weeks there, or use a heavy max out set of 3 or 4, for instance, to estimate a single. You can kind of choose each one. That's how this program works. Yeah. What do you think?
So kind of with that first cycle, just making sure that I understand this, right? We've got a 9-week back squat emphasis, but obviously we still have to do all of the other strength exercises because that's kind of how this works. When we do a back squat emphasis, it just means we're going to put a little bit more focus there than on something else like a clean deadlift or a front squat, right? So we're doing, first 3 weeks focused on 5s with an AMRAP set on the back squat, but then everything else will be 5s as well, right? 5s on the clean deadlift, 5s on pause front squats. But the AMRAP is where we're really pushing ourselves because that's where the focus is on the back squat, right?
Yeah.
Then
so for instance, on that 5s and clean deadlifts with drop sets of 10, those drop sets are not going to be slowing down very much, right? Yeah. Whereas I expect you to start to slow down in those back squat AMRAPs. It's an AMRAP. Like, you're going to do as many as you can.
Yeah.
So this is a true maximal effort, whereas the clean deadlift, not so much. What were you going to say?
On our Olympic lifts, we're doing a lot of volume on those, but not necessarily doing very high rep sets. We're going to be doing like EMOM doubles, right? So 2 reps every with a minute of rest in between. I really love EMOMs. That's like one of my favorites. I've probably done more EMOMs than anything else in my training because Penley was such a huge fan of them, and so we did those all the time. And it just kind of like what you were saying, he said it was the big benefit of those was something called the fatigue to feedback ratio, right? So with 2 reps in a minute, you get a lot of feedback from the first rep. You can apply it to that second rep. That's good. But then if you were to maybe say do a set of 4, the fatigue would start to stack up where you wouldn't necessarily be able to make those final few reps high quality. But by having a little bit of extra rest in between, that 1 minute between set, you can really keep the quality of those reps super high. And then for anybody else who's like an overthinker who really thinks a lot, EMOMs are a great way to kind of bulldoze your way through the overthinking because you just won't have the time to do it. I found that to be super effective. Quick interruption of the video to announce our newest project, the Competition Strong Team on Train Heroic. If you're an intermediate lifter competing or planning to compete on the national circuit, this is the program for you. You'll get access to proven programming, daily video review, and coach messaging for $39 a month. Just click the link in the description below or scan the QR code on the screen for a free week trial today. All right, back to the video.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta love EMOMs. It kind of freshens up training a little bit, makes it a little different. It challenges our brain. That's an important thing when we're working on such a technical movement. We want to keep challenging the brain in new and unique ways while staying within the confines of, remember, those principles that we talked about.
Right.
So if you guys, had watched that programming video I put out, right, our rep counts fall in between kind of the volume or strength phase rep counts for these Olympic lifts. So you might notice that we're doing a little more volume in the Olympic lifts on this than we are in the strength lifts, most likely. But that's because we want to peak our back squat. We don't want to peak our back squat volume. We're trying to peak the back squat for a one rep max single at the end, to really bring up our top end, to bring up our leg strength.
Yeah, So we got 9-week back squat. That's 3 weeks of 5s, 3 weeks of 3s, 3 weeks of 1s. And that's kind of that whole 9-week block there. How are the Olympic lifts changing through the whole 9 weeks? So we've got kind of a 3-week EMOM double cycle. What's after that?
Yeah, so 10 sets of doubles on week 1. Then we go into week 4, which is the first week of block 2. And we're going to do 15 EMOM singles. So we go from 20 reps on the first week of the first block to 15 reps on the first week of the second block. And that starts 5% higher than the last one started. Then block 3, when we're going to be peaking the back squat at the end, right? We're doing 10 sets starting out on EMOM singles, 10 sets EMOM singles that start at 75% on week 1. By the end, you're going to have around 6 sets at or above 85% in an EMOM. And now, an interesting part about this first 9-week back squat focus is that I actually separate out the clean and the jerk. So the main heavy days you have 3 heavy days. And each one of them, one is a snatch day, one is a clean day, and the other is a jerk day. And each of them has a lower body strength lift following that. And then the other days are more complex based with upper body accessories to allow for recovery for those bigger days. So we have these 3 main movement days that we focus on a lot in this program. And then there's one day, of course, that is kind of our optional, 5th day. And that falls midweek, and that's one of the down days as well. So this gives a lot of, flexibility for if you have to miss a workout in a week or you're traveling or you're out of town on the weekend. This program still works for you. It's still a little custom, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how those back squats go. I didn't really mention, but we are doing pause front squats throughout this back squat emphasis cycle. So that's kind of a down day as well. We're doing it for speed out at the bottom there, working on our positions. Yeah.
And then, also kind of getting some positional strength at the bottom, like making sure that we're holding good upper back position at the bottom of those squats. So if anybody tends to tip forward out of them, this is a great way to, with lighter weights, be able to work on that before we go into the next block, right? 9-week front squat focus.
Yeah, so 9-week front squat focus, basically very similar to what I described in the back squat focus, except it's front squats on the final day of the week and pause back squats midweek with clean deadlifts again in the beginning of the week. And so what that kind of looks like with the Olympic lifts, this is the big change that's happening on here, other than just focusing on front squat and doing AMRAPs on front squats, is that we're throwing the clean and the jerk together. So you'll notice that throughout this program, each block takes a step towards more and more specific competition lifts, which, what are the specific competition lifts? It's snatch singles, it's clean and jerk singles. But we don't just want to do that the whole program. We want to sprinkle it in, as much as we can, get as close as we can, but we have to follow some kind of periodization model. We have to have volume. We have to, taper that volume off to allow for strength gains. So
And another big reason that may be useful for splitting up, especially the clean and the jerk, is that, like, let's say that you are really bad at the jerk. If we're always just doing clean and jerks, you're going to be limited by the jerk, right? But you're also not going to be able to get really good practice in with the jerk. That was something that we talked about on the interview with your coach, which we'll link up here if you guys want to check that out. But the jerk is just an exercise that people just don't practice as much on its own, and they really need to. I think it's one of the more complex lifts that we can do. So that's why it's really important to split them up at the beginning of a training cycle like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once we push them together, we're going to be doing a lot of volume, and kind of in the first block of front squat emphasis, of the 9-week front squat emphasis, we're going to be 2 cleans plus 2 jerks on our clean and jerk day. Then we're going to do some waves with triples and doubles on snatch. So we're going to do, for instance, here's a way I would set it up on the week 1. We have RPE 6, we do RPE 5 triple, RPE 5 double. Then we could leave the same weight on the bar, or we could go slightly down and do an RPE 6 triple, RPE 6 double. Maybe we leave that weight on again, and we try and go for an RPE 7 triple with that same weight, then do a double, go up in weight at RPE 7, right? So we're waving up, maybe a little down, and we're just experimenting with different rep ranges, kind of pushing our limits there. Like, what's on the last week of that block, for instance, what's the most I could do for a triple, and then how much can I add on to that on a double after, on the RPE 9 wave at the very end. With clean and jerks, it's more top set and then drop sets on the clean and jerk there. So we're doing a little less wave work. That's more on the snatches in this period of the program. And then
so let's break it down. So we've got a 9 weeks here. Block 1, we've got two cleans, 2 jerks, and then 3s and 2s waves on snatches. What does block 2 look like?
Block 2 is going to be 2 cleans, 1 jerk, and double single waves on snatches. So again, just a tick more specific as we get closer and closer to this competition, or if you're not doing a competition, you're just maxing out on your own at home, your big max out session.
Yeah. And then in that final week of the 3-week front squat block, what does those Olympic lifts look like?
That's the full clean and jerk and singles, but still for waves on snatch. So we might have 6 singles and wave up to RPE 7 twice, wave up to RPE 8 twice, just to get a little more work in. Especially, a lot of people overthink their top set as they approach it. So, giving you 2 ramp ups towards it might help. That mental aspect of it, just kind of feeling what different weights feel like.
I love that, and I love waves. The first time I ever did one was at one of the Penley training camps. And it was, I don't think he called it a wave or anything like that, but I was just moving pretty terribly. So he told me to start over again and build back up. But what's really good about that is that maybe you kind of get some feedback from your top set where you realize that your technique was a little off in some areas, and that's something that you want to focus on. Pulling back down and building back up again gives you the opportunity to work on those things that you maybe didn't know you needed to work on. That you found at your first round at that top set.
Yeah, and it's cool. You see a lot of high-level lifters use waves as well, as it's a good opportunity to get more volume in while still doing heavy singles. Mm-hmm. So you might not be doing doubles, you might be doing singles like in this last block of the front squat focus. So for instance, when I was training with Hampton, he might work up to a miss on the snatch, go down another 10 kilos, work his way back up again. Maybe he misses it again. He goes back down again and then works up again. But he makes it on the third try. So that kind of thing would happen pretty often when I was there. So gives you more opportunities. He even does it in competition. I don't know if you knew that, Brian.
I actually didn't know that. But now that you're saying that gives me a few ideas. One, which is that, like, in competition, let's say that you take a single and then take an attempt, and then for whatever reason things start slowing down in the back. Doing something like this may give you some practice with having to take a lift in between, or having to do something to stay warm in competition when you may have to take an attempt and then wait 15 minutes before your second one. So one, this is a great way to get some extra fitness in and kind of be capable of doing some extra work at those top end weights a little bit. But then two is like an underrated benefit here is that it's just fun. It's novel. It's like a new thing that a lot of people maybe haven't tried before. And that alone is great for keeping things interesting. Because if we're bored all the time in training, just doing snatch, clean, and jerk all the time, we have to kind of keep it interesting a little bit just to stay involved in the sport.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like when you've been training for a matter of years, things start to slow down. Things start to get a little more boring. So it's great to keep you mentally stimulated during your training session.
Yeah.
And when you have to be going up and down and up and down, you can't just go through the motions and just work up to a heavy single without thinking anything, like so
Yeah.
many of you knuckleheads do. Um, yeah, so it's good to just put that challenge, and it keeps you thinking about how you're moving, keeps
Yeah.
you intentional about the weights you're selecting, because you have to be like, okay, well, if this was RPE 7 for a triple, now I have to do RPE 7 for a double. Oh, that's, last week that was about 5 kilos difference. Maybe I'll try for 6 or 7 kilos. No, that went too high on that one. Keeps you experimenting and being realistic with where you're at, understanding where your limits are. I think that's a
Ooh.
big benefit.
And another big benefit of that is it sets you up really well because you're thinking about numbers a lot and you're actually being very realistic with what you're capable of on the day, which is great preparation for the next training block, the peaking cycle. So let's go ahead and dive into that. We've got two peaking blocks on here, 2 3-week peaking blocks. Why do we need two peaking blocks first of all, and what's the difference between the two?
So why do we need two? I'd say the first part of the peaking block, the first block, the first 3-week block, is mainly for testing our limits. It's seeing what our top end really is in those snatch and clean and jerk. Not for the strength movements, right? Strength movements, we're done. We tested those. We tested front squat. We tested back squat. We improved our 1RMs there. Now it's time to really push it on those Olympic lifts. What are we capable of? This is really where we're trying to hit those new 1RMs in those lifts. And we're going to take even more specificity. So we're going to take out the clean deadlift, actually. Most people, clean deadlift's a good foundational movement, but it's the least specific strength movement we can do. So we want to add in another
very
squatting
fatiguing.
day. And it can also very much fatigue you, especially if you're moving slow on clean deadlifts. So we take it out. Bench press. I like putting bench press in the program. The bench press is used for the 2 9-week cycles before this. I think it's a good way to put load on the body, like a high level of load. And you probably should train every range of motion. But we're peaking. We want to be the best at the Olympic lifts. This is the part people like, right? So you might be a little more familiar with this kind of style of training because we're really just trying to find that tip of the pyramid instead of making our base wider. I harp on making the base wider a lot, but you can really peak super well if you had a good base building. And so that's what we're doing here. We're doing 3 squatting variations a week. And kind of how that unfolds, we're going to do 1 regular front squat, 1 regular back squat, and the 3rd squatting day is going to be a pause day, so a little lighter. And that day is decided as being a front squat or a back squat by how good you are at front squat. So if you front squat more than 90% of your back squat, you're going to be doing back squats. But if you're under 90%, so you need to work on your front squat more, you're going to be doing front squats. And that's a great way to kind of focus on your weakness. Again, a lot of programs, they're just super general, but we're trying to make this one a little more custom, have a little more, like I said with the optional 5th day, right? So the goal is to do 5 days every week, but if you have to miss a day, you know which day to miss now. And this program works best for you in that way. Same if you're better at front squat or back squat. So we're doing that with that rule. And in the first week of the first block of peaking, we're doing 4s in the strength movements. Now, since we already peaked our strength, we want to be the best at Olympic lifts as we can on every single day in this program. So we're going to be doing these for speed. That means that we're not even going to go above 85% on the strength movements in this first peaking block. That's in sets of 4, right? So an 85% set of 4, it should still be moving really fast. Maybe the last rep slows down just slightly. Not grindy, just slightly slower than the fast couple reps you did in the beginning. So that's kind of a little bit about peak block 1. Do you think that makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is basically like we've done a bunch of work leading up to this point. A lot of people who maybe didn't plan ahead will start training at this point, leading up to the meet. Like they're like, oh, now I got to start taking things seriously. This point is where we're kind of uncovering all the work that you've already done, and this is where we get to kind of express all of that training into new maxes in the snatch and clean and jerk. So then, what's the difference between this first peaking cycle that's 3 weeks and in the second peaking cycle? Quick interruption of the video to tell you about the OlyStrong team. The OlyStrong team is my group coaching program designed to be affordable and effective. You'll get access to your choice of 3 or 5 days a week of proven programming, daily video feedback to improve your technique, and unlimited coach messaging to ask as many questions as you'd like, including the dumb ones. Most coaches charge hundreds per month in coaching fees, but I'm giving it to you guys for less than $30 a month. And you can try it for free for 7 days by scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking the link in the description below. All right, back to the video.
Yeah, so in the first peaking cycle, we're kind of figuring out what our ranges are going to be for opener, second attempt, and our third attempt. So those ranges are probably going to be kind of big. I would expect it to be, maybe 8 kilos, maybe even 10 kilos. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to open 90 or maybe even 100 in the snatch. My max is 110, but I got to get more consistent with 90 if I want to open 100, right? I got to get more consistent with 100 if I want to open 100. And so the second peaking block, you kind of know what that third attempt is going to be. You know what your top end weight is. We hit a new 1RM snatch, new 1RM clean and jerk. So this peak block is about working back from there and increasing our minimums and our consistency, especially with like last warm-up and opener type weights. So that it's no question. I want you to step on that stage at that competition and you have no question, no doubt in your mind about making that opener. I think too many coaches, too many athletes get to a competition and miss their openers or are not confident in their openers. They're opening too heavy. Maybe they're opening at 95%, but they miss 85%, weekly in training. That should not be the case. Your opener should be lower than.
Yeah, and this is kind of like with your opener. This is something where we want to get so dialed in that your opener is just a made lift. It's just a made lift. It's not even a question in your brain. Like it's already there. You've done it so many times in training, and you guys do something unique with your peak, where a lot of it is actually based around attempts rather than percentages. Can you dive in a little bit on what that means?
Yeah. So for instance, peak block 1 has 1 total day a week. So it'll have the Olympic lifts throughout the week, but only one of the days we're doing snatch and clean and jerk together. And that day throughout the peak block is going to follow a progression that is based off of last warm-up, opener, second attempt, third attempt. And so, for instance, week 1 of that total day in the first peaking block, it might be 3 or 4 sets at the last warm-up and 3 or 4 sets at opener. Maybe not 4 sets at opener, probably 2 or 3. But what that's going to look like is you're kind of figuring out what those numbers are, kind of like we said, right? We're getting really consistent at them, and hopefully in the end of peak block 1, trying to push those maximums even more. In the second peak block, right, we're kind of just getting efficient with those more opener weights. That now that we know what our top end is, we got to make 92% a lot more efficient, and no question about missing it on the platform, kind of like you said. So some other changes that we're going to look at when we go into peak block 2, that range, you've narrowed down your range for opener, for instance. There's going to be 2 total days, so we're doing snatch and clean and jerk together 2 different days throughout the week. The other days are going to be a lot lighter, so it's going to be low neural accessories as well throughout the entire program. What does that mean? Low neural, things that aren't as hard to do on your brain. So for instance, a back squat is a lot harder on you than a goblet squat. So we're not going to swap out the back squat. But some examples of accessory exercises, maybe doing an RDL, swapping that out for a single leg RDL. It's not going to fatigue you as much. Doing Bulgarians with heavy dumbbells, maybe we're going to swap that into just doing step-ups with like a light dumbbell. Maybe we're swapping hamstring curl machine, really heavy, for doing banded hamstring curls for higher reps. So we're really just putting everything into these big snatch and clean and jerk days. All of our training that we've done up to this point is being focused in, like kind of like a magnifying glass when you hold it in the sun. We're just focusing it all in towards the snatch and clean and jerk. All that volume capacity we built up, all that strength, all that power is going into those Olympic lift days, those big total days. These are some of the best training sessions you'll ever have. You barely feel like you need to warm up, working up to a top snatch, because you are all weightlifting at this point. You're out of breath going up the stairs because you are just so snatch and clean and jerk. It's important to not do this for a very long period of time, or else you just become out of shape and kind of a loser. But doing this after a whole peaking, phase, and some strength phases that all peak into it appropriately, can really lead to some huge results in the snatch and clean and jerk. Especially you're tapering off even more volume, cutting even more volume, feeling better each day you go in. It's just going to be some of the best training days of your life on those peaking blocks. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. So, I mean, that pretty much goes over the two peaks. Let's go ahead and get into what does the taper look like? What are people expected to feel like on that last week, the competition week?
I'll tell you this, you're going to feel awful. So I just said how great it was going to be, but your body probably does not feel that good.
No.
Your lifts feel great, especially you get to the last week of that max out, third attempt kind of day, and you are beat up. It's like, a good way to describe it is you can't sleep because you're so tired. If you've ever had that. Like, you did so much throughout that day that you're just like, I can't even sleep, even though I'm so tired.
But that's how you're supposed to feel.
We want you to feel awful. So you're going to go 5 days out from your competition, from your max out day. I want to do last warm-ups or openers. It might feel like a bit of a struggle to get up there after maybe maxing out, your snatch and clean and jerk 2 or 3 days prior. We're going to work up to last warm-ups or openers just one by one on snatch and clean and jerk, then do very light accessories. Maybe if your hips bother you, you're doing some hip stretches. Maybe some iso holds for your knee tendonitis that you have at this point, something like that. Very light stuff, just things that take care of your body, but don't add any fatigue. That's the goal during the taper. Get rid of all the fatigue, taper off the volume, taper off the intensity. We don't want to look like an absolute boss in the training hall, throwing up huge weights and then stink it up on the platform and do less. That's not the goal here. We want to get rid of that fatigue.
We are not training hall champions. We are platform champions.
Yes, let's do it where it matters, where we win medals, where we do, big lifts that count. So that's 5 days out, last warm-ups, openers, prehabs. So 4 days out, what are we going to do? Maybe 70 to 75% full lifts, three by one at 70% on snatch and clean and jerk. Then we're going to squat. Now you're going to have the choice between either a back squat or a front squat, again, through that 90% method, which are you kind of worse at. And then that's going to be up to just an RP7 or RP8 single. That's going to be pretty light. But we want it to move fast. We just want that stimulus on your body of what heavy weight feels like on your back or in your front rack. Then 3 days out, we're going to do some 60 to 70% powers plus prehabs. That's it. 2 days out, 50 to 60% full lifts, 3 sets, prehabs. So you notice the trend. The percentage just keeps going down and down. And the volume has tapered off, a ton since the week before. Then 1 day out, so the day before you compete, you got some options. This kind of comes down to a bit of personal choice. My recommendation is to do a dynamic warm-up. The one that I made, that I have a YouTube video on, is perfect for this because it doesn't require a lot of space. You can do it in a hotel room. You can do it, in the edge of a convention center somewhere. So do that warm-up the day before. Move the bar around if you really want to. I usually don't even do that. And then rest, get off your butt, get off your feet. Don't do some crazy stuff, just chill out. Same goes for before you lift on that heavy day, on that peaking day. So on comp day, what's gonna happen on comp day? You guys should feel super prepared to hit heavy. What you should absolutely feel like you're going to make your openers, pretty confident in your second attempts, and knowing that you're capable of a big third attempt on the competition platform. This doesn't mean it's a given, right? This is still a lift that's really going to push us, but that third attempt is going to be something you've probably done. Or perhaps, a medal's on the line. I need to add 2 kilos to my PR to win this medal. Of course, take that lift. That's totally acceptable. Totally makes sense if you're in that situation. And yeah, so the goal is to just prepare you the best as possible for a competition day, so that you're not having misses on your opener or second attempt. We want to make our first 2 attempts. We want to put ourselves in the best position to hit something that really pushes us on that third attempt. That's pretty much kind of what the taper week looks like. Just cutting volume by a lot. This might be a lot lighter than some other coaches or athletes are used to going in their taper. I just don't think you need to go that heavy. I think we want to get rid of all the fatigue. Like I said, we don't want to look like a cool guy in the training hall. We just want to be really ready for that comp day. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, I think the same thing too on that taper. I know a lot of people want to go heavier in that taper, but it's almost always out of anxiety, not because of out of actual need, right? Not out of physical need to go heavier. It's always like, I worry that I'm losing all my strength because the competition's right around the corner. Trust yourself, trust the training that you've done. That is not the case. So let's go ahead and do a full recap here. I'll see if I can do this one off the dome.
A quick interruption to the video to tell you about something we've been working on for a long time, the 10-week squat program. One of the reasons I've been able to make progress in my Olympic lifts so quickly is through my strength reserve. As an 88 kilo lifter, I've back squatted 230 kilos or over 500 pounds. While we don't compete in the squat, having an excess of squat strength allows me to get in more training in the Olympic lifts as they don't fatigue me as much. And of course, if you can't squat a weight, you're never gonna be able to clean it. So if you feel like the squat is what's holding you back, be sure to use code LASTSETPOD, all uppercase, at checkout to get a 20% discount on your program today.
25 weeks of training for your next competition. First 9 weeks, back squat emphasis. We're going to do 3 weeks of 5s, 3 weeks of 3s, and 3 weeks of 1s for all of those lower body strength exercises. But on the back squat emphasis, after we do our sets, our straight sets, we're going to do an AMRAP set to actual failure, meaning as many reps as you can. And that's because we are emphasizing that back squat. Then the next, during that back squat phase, our Olympic lifts, we're going to be doing EMOM doubles. That means every minute we're going to do some doubles. We'll start with 10 sets at about 65%. We'll build on that over the 3 weeks. And then we'll transition those into EMOM singles. And then the final 3 weeks will be EMOM singles again at slightly heavier weights. But again, here our main focus is back squat strength, hitting a new 1 rep max, getting really, really strong while we're accumulating some volume in the Olympic lifts. The next 9-week cycle, focus on front squat because we want to get more specific to the competition lifts. Front squat slightly more specific than a back squat. So we're going to focus there. All the things that we did in the last 9-week cycle, focusing on the back squat, we're going to do focusing on the front squat. So that means that's going to be the primary strength exercise on Saturdays. Again, 5s for 3 weeks, 3s for 3 weeks, 1s for 3 weeks, with an AMRAP set afterwards as well to try and push as hard as you can. Meanwhile, still building up clean deadlift strength, still building up front squat strength and back squat strength with some pauses there. And then during that 9-week front squat focus, we're going to put together the snatch and the clean and jerk. So we're actually going to be clean and jerking together on the same day instead of splitting them up. So block 1, that's 3 weeks of 2 cleans, 2 jerks, and then waves of 3s and 2s on snatches. The second 3-week block in that 9-week focus is 2 cleans, 1 jerk with waves of 2s and 1s on the snatch. And then the final 3-week block in that front squat focus is just straight clean and jerk singles and ones on waves on the snatch. And that will complete your strength focus mesocycle there on the front squat. Then we go ahead and go into the peaking cycle. That's going to be 6 weeks of peaking split into two 3-week blocks. That first block is all about finding new maxes in the snatch and clean and jerk, like finding the upper limits of what's possible, starting to get an idea of what our openers are going to look like. We're going to make those strength exercises a little bit more specific. Again, we're going to cut out the clean deadlifts. We're going to replace that with another squat. So squatting 3 times a week with a little bit of extra emphasis on either the back squat or front squat, depending on your weak point. And then, it's just heavy singles on snatch and clean and jerk. That is what we're working towards. We're kind of thinking about like, this is now where we uncover all the work that you did up to this point. And then that final peaking block, that's 3 weeks. We're going to narrow down that range on what our attempts are going to be. So maybe not necessarily hitting new 1-rep maxes in this phase, but narrowing down. I know that I'm going to open between 90 and 100. Now we know whether we're going to go 92 or 94, like thinking about getting a little bit more granular with what our ranges are going to be there. And at the same time, kind of dropping some of those accessories a little bit more to be less overall fatiguing. So we just have as much resources as possible for snatch and clean and jerk. So that may mean like swapping a heavy barbell RDL out for a lighter single leg dumbbell RDL. Just so that we can have a little bit more recovery dedicated to the snatch and clean and jerk. And then finally, we've got 1 week to taper. You've done all the work. You've put in all the work up to this point. You've PR'd. You know what you're going to do on the competition platform. You're confident in your warm-ups and your openers. Now it's time to just make sure that you don't mess that up by going too heavy in the training hall. And that's hitting some, last warm-up or openers 5 days out, 70 to 75% lifts 4 days out, 60 to 70% powers 3 days out, 2 days out, hit 50 to 60% full lifts. 1 day out, take a rest day, do a dynamic warm up, and be ready to go on competition day the next day. I think that was pretty much it. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Calvin, anything that you guys want to add into this?
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, this is a team program we're releasing, right? So if you do this, I will be at the Arnold to coach people. So I will be at the Arnold. If you're on this program, you will receive coaching in person at the Arnold from me. Otherwise, if you're doing this program on your own, max out and tag me in your stories and, invite me to collab post. I want to hear from you guys when you run this program. I want to interact with y'all so that, like I said, like Brian said earlier, we have video review, 1 video a day. So throw in an Olympic lift you did, throw a snatch on there, and I will give you comments on it, on how to improve your technique, perhaps giving you primer exercises that you can use as well before you do the main lifts. Yeah, basically, this program is going to be great. We're also releasing a Spanish version of it, so tell any of your Spanish-speaking friends if they need a program and don't speak English very well that they should hop on this. But yeah, I mean that pretty much covers everything. This is going to be quite the program, probably one of the biggest projects we've taken on, but I'm ready for the challenge to help all you guys hit the biggest lifts you've ever hit before.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. And just for a little bit of context and behind the scenes, like what goes on in the business, this is the first time that we've had another team program out since I started doing online coaching in 2021. So very excited about this. Like that, we don't take a decision like this lightly because it's a commitment for basically to do on like team coaching kind of forever, right? And that's the game plan. So with this team program, we are going to be peaking for 3 meets a year. We're going to be peaking for the Arnold. We're going to be peaking for Nationals, and we are going to be peaking for the Virus Series 2 in Fort Worth. And that's kind of the game plan with this, at least for next year, for 2026, and all those competitions. And and then just also for a little bit of context too, for anybody who's ever wanted, competition coaching, previously all we've had to offer was one-on-one coaching. It means that you had to pay a hefty sum, a little bit over 100 something bucks a month, and it was all customized, right? This is a great way to make this a little bit more accessible for most people, right? 39 bucks a month is pretty doable, and you're still going to get video review. It's about as close to one-on-one coaching as you can get for about a third of the price. So, I'm just really excited about this. And if you guys are interested and you're listening to this on Tuesday when this comes out, then it is available for a wait list. Guys can get on the wait list for this. And then it will be available on September 12th to actually go ahead and sign up for it. And then we will be starting on September 15th for the first 25-week prep. Yeah, week 1. So guys, you can check that out at the link in the description below. Yeah, anything else that you want to go over?
Nah, it's just going to be a great program. So let me guys know if you're considering it. Any questions you have, DM them over my way or throw them in our Discord that we have. And yeah,
or in the comments too. If you got questions about how this is going to work, just feel free, drop some questions in the comments. We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap there. Calvin, where can people find you?
At Calvin Lackey, 81 kg on everything.
And you guys can find me at Big Bend Strength on everything. Make sure to check out our programs and this new team competition program down in the description below. We'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
If you found this video helpful, then make sure to check out this video here or this episode of the Last Set, Best Set podcast.